Evening. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Tuesday, December 19th, 2023, our last meeting of the year. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, any late items?
So we do have one late item, and those are the resolutions from the committee of the whole meetings on November 20th, December 18th, and 19th regarding the 2024 utility budgets and 2024 general fund operating and capital budgets.
Okay, so that would, council, I'd like to propose that we bring that, put that into the right after the consent agenda. So right around item before my report. That okay? Yeah. So if I could get a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Councillor Van Alphen, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries. Now consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Don't see any. So again, approval of the consent agenda. Councillor Patton, Councillor Peak, all in favor? And that carries. And now the business arising. I'll pass this over to our Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So while the slides are updating, I'll just kind of speak to over the last few months, council has been looking at the budgets for the 2024 year. We met today. We were today and yesterday, and at the end of the day, council is proposing in terms of a general municipal tax rate increase, a 5.38% increase. That equates to the average home, which is assessed at $944,156 in Summerland in 2024, a rate increase of $127.73 over last year. Now these are based off of the proposed 2024 BC assessment rates. The completed roll and the revised roll aren't out yet, so these numbers may change slightly, but based on the calculations and the figures that we have, that's where we're at. In terms of garbage rates, we have seen some increases in our collection costs as well as our contractual landfill fees. So in terms of those, garbage rates are being proposed to increase 88 cents a month. That increase would take effect on March 1st of 2024 and would equate to an $11 increase over the year. And then in terms of the water, sewer, and electrical rates, there is a presentation further on today, which I'll speak more to those. But in terms of an overall property, a resident will see a $252 annual increase or a $20.97 when compared to last year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we've council's been working pretty hard the last couple of days, and we've really tried to get the keep the tax increase as low as possible. We landed on 5.38, which is as a result of quite a bit of cutting that we had to do. There will be a public open house on January 17th at the Arena Banquet Hall from 5 to 7. Is that correct? Do we know more or less? 5. So at that time, we'll get feedback on our budget. It will be presented to the budget. We'll take public feedback, and then it'll come back to council for adoption and further discussion. Some people in the gallery today might be interested in where we landed on the dog park. We have included $50,000 in the budget for establishing a permanent fenced dog park. The location was not part of the budget discussions. The location has yet to be determined. That will be determined at a regular council meeting. And it'll be the status quo until such a time. So that's hearing much more on the budget. Next item on the agenda is my report.
Just 1 second, Mayor Holmes. So we do need a council
Oh.
resolution to confirm the
Oh, that's
resolution.
right. You're supposed to.
Yeah, that has
on
been
this.
made. So there's about 6 slides. And I believe there's about 15 resolutions that have been consolidated into one. So we just need a council motion to confirm the resolutions made by the committee of the whole on November 20th, 18th, December 18th and 19th. So all of these resolutions are included in this one resolution.
Right, so these are all the resolutions we passed in the budget meetings. And because they weren't part of the package that came to us with their changes that council made. So we have to pass a resolution in council meeting. Someone would like to move those, Councilor Creek?
I'll make a motion to move the consolidated motion from our budget discussion.
Do second with Councilor Betts. I think we've really had enough discussion. I'll just call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. We're good, corporate officer then? Yeah. So moving on to my report. Last Wednesday, December 13th, the chiefs of 5 Silks communities and the mayors and chairs of 9 Okanagan municipalities and 3 regional districts came together on the Soyuz Indian Band territory to discuss the protection of the Okanagan Lake watershed. This collaborative leadership table, as it's called, was initiated by the Okanagan Nation Alliance and was facilitated by a Winnipeg-based organization called the Center for Indigenous Environmental Resources, who have held similar tables in Manitoba and the Northwest Territories. The table is an Indigenous-led process to build trust and strengthen relationships with local government, with the aim of getting us working together on common issues. Together, we decide the scope and structure of the table, which was the primary focus of last week's meeting. We will meet again in the new year to continue our discussions and identify joint actions to protect the Okanagan watershed. And I just want to add that nobody at the meeting could ever remember a time when you had all the chiefs and all the mayors of the whole valley meeting together to discuss issues. So it was quite an event. One great example of an action in the watershed that's already underway is the Lower Trail Creek Restoration Project, which is being led by the Okanagan Nation Alliance with participation from all levels of government, including the District of Summerland. Natasha Lukey from the ONA Fisheries Department provided a project update at the last Okanagan Basin Water Board meeting on December 5th. She explained how Western science and traditional ecological knowledge are both being used for the restoration work, and how with the first of several riffle pools in place, salmon have already returned to spawn in Trail Creek. So it's quite amazing. And I asked Natasha if she'd come to present to council one day, and she said she'd be more than happy to. So that'll be coming up in the new year. Later that same day, on December 5th, I attended an equity and anti-racism forum at Summerland Secondary School involving students, teachers, and several community members. The forum included small group discussions on concrete actions that students and others can take individually and collectively to promote equity and to combat racism. It was especially valuable hearing the students' voices on these matters. And I will join the students again in the new year as they continue their discussion and consider specific initiatives to undertake. Finally, I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Looking back on 2023, I have to say we've had a very busy year and we've made some good progress on many of our priorities. And I look forward to keeping the momentum going in 2024. CAO, your report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. As we wind up 2023 later this week for the holiday season, residents are encouraged to check out the district website for detailed information on the holiday closures affecting municipal facilities. Different hours and closures exist for the arena, aquatic and fitness center, landfill, and of course municipal hall. Each is outlined on the main page for ease of reference, and we will do a Facebook post or two as well. In terms of District Hall, we'll be closing this Friday at 2 p.m. and we will be closed through January 1. As with previous years, the fire department is supporting Dry Grad through the collection of Christmas trees. With a donation to the 2024 Dry Grad class, you can have your Christmas tree picked up from your house by the Summerland Fire Department. Trees will be chipped and composted by the Summerland Fire Department. And pickup dates include the first 2 Sundays in the new year. That's the 7th and the 14th. Residents can call the fire department to schedule a pickup at 250-404-4087 or by emailing sfd@summerland.ca. Finally, just a reminder that our after-hours emergency line for issues regarding water, sewer, roads, parks, or electric utility can be reached by calling 250-493-0005, even during the holiday period. If you are experiencing a fire, health emergency, or require police assistance, though, please call 911 directly for support. With that, I'll wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions for either of us? No. So this is the first public comment opportunity for any item that's on the agenda that doesn't have a statutory requirement for consultation. Anybody want to speak to agenda item? The published agenda. Well, it's published online, but I think this is, yeah. We'll move on to development reports, item 9.1, and that would be our planning technician, Ms. Tui.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to sit here because it's quite busy. This evening, I am presenting a development variance permit for the property at 7702 Prairie Valley Road. The development variance application is requesting to vary the District of Summerland's sign bylaw to permit third-party advertising on private property. The intent of the variance application is to allow for scheduled third-party advertising by local companies and event groups on the digital LED notice board. The promoting of community events and local businesses was noted as the owner's main priority and reasoning for the request. Section 3.1 of our sign bylaw lists prohibited signs from all zones. In this case, Section 3 describes third-party signs, except as permitted in Section 4 herein, and district-sponsored wayfinder or directional signs. And to state the district's definition of a third-party sign, it's a sign which directs attention to a business, commodity service, or entertainment conducted, sold, or offered at a location other than the premises on which that sign is located. To put the application into context for council, a sign permit was applied for back in August of this year. The permit was for a digital sign. This was to replace an existing board which had depleted with age and limited upkeep. The board is currently being rented by Tim Hortons restaurant on the adjacent lot, of both which are owned by the applicant. The sign siting, design and construction at the time the permit was issued complied with our zoning bylaw and also our sign regulation bylaws. The sign application was presented to staff as a replacement board that would continue the advertisement of the abutting Tim Hortons. Once installed, the board displayed copies stating that third-party advertising was available to rent. At this time, the property owner was instructed to cease any third-party advertising and to submit a variance permit to the aforementioned section of our sign bylaw. The outcome of the application may have an impact on the character of the area and set a precedent for future variance requests to third-party business signage. The applicant has stated that 50% of the allotted time of digital advertisements will still be dedicated to Tim Hortons, and the other 50% will be local advertisements for businesses and community events. This was the pylon sign that housed the Tim Hortons before. And this is the new signboard which is in place now. Staff recognise that if the variance is approved, the district could not regulate which third-party businesses or organisations advertise on this digital board. However, the goals of the sign bylaw are to be supportive of business community, supporting brand, but also to promote fairness between all businesses. Advertising to the travelling public on Highway 97 could be a means of generating awareness to our local businesses and events. For this reason, staff are in favour of this variance. However, staff are recommending that if approved, a condition of this permit be that the applicant upholds their 50% local business and events promise and 50% on-premises business advertising of Tim Hortons. Staff had drafted the proposed variance permit for council's consideration in this regard, but it is at council's discretion whether they adopt it in this way. With that, staff are recommending the approval of the variance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions? Councillor Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To staff, how is the 50% going to be enforced?
Mr. Dulwood.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Patton. We have written and drafted the proposed development variance permit with the condition within the DVP that there'd be 50% of on-premise business signage and 50% third-party signage. The actual on-the-ground enforcement of that can be difficult. Like the variance can be used with the condition that if they're not following that variance, then they would be breaking kind of the contract in terms of what they've considered of the approval process with council of achieving that variance and might be in violation of that variance. So we would be requiring them to come forward or maybe issuing a bylaw offense notice at that point in time. I think the question of 50%, and how that will be monitored is probably something that we'd have to kind of monitor it as it moves forward and use a little bit of discretion, I would say, and at the staff level to determine like, okay, is it roughly 50%? Is it fairly close to what the intent is of this recommendation? Like if it's at 90%, I think we would have a concern and we would be talking with the owner in that regard.
Councillor Peak.
I wonder if this is an opportunity as part of the condition that they would be required to submit on a 6-month basis the other businesses that were advertised and submitted to district. And that allows an ongoing monitoring. I've seen that done elsewhere, and it's not particularly burdensome on either party, either the people that are using the sign, advertising, own the sign, or ourselves.
Yes, no, is that doable?
Your worship, I think it's not a bad idea actually through Councillor Peak. We can definitely talk with the applicant and see if they'd be willing to do it. They seem fairly collaborative with their approach to this variance. So I think it'd be something that they'd be interested in participating in.
Councillor Elton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question through to our planner. Like I don't see it in here, maybe I'm missing it. The highways department, any concerns?
Through the councillor, through the mayor. No, there isn't any concerns. It actually follows all of the bylaw recommendations for its size, the digital lighting, as well as the graphics that aren't allowed to change on a certain rotation. So that's why it was allowed in the first place, because it met all of those regulations. And it's housed on private property and situated far enough away from the highway that it doesn't trigger any of those recommendations.
Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question would be, in order to grant this variance in the long term, I mean, beyond the first 6 months or 12 months and say into 5 years in the future and they sell the property, is there really any way to ensure that the sign is displaying 50% advertising? I just see a limitation in an ability to actually enforce that. My second comment would be, how is it that the applicant intends that these would be local businesses that are advertised? I understand the local community events and I support that, but all the other signage that's required by our sign bylaw is local businesses in our town. And this, unless I'm mistaken, essentially could allow anybody to advertise. I just don't understand how we would monitor that.
Who wants to take it?
Well, Your Worship, to Councillor Betts. So we have written into the condition of the drafted development variance permit that it'd be local businesses only. So that's, we could, like if we see a multinational corporation advertising on there, that we could try to enforce that aspect, that it's not local businesses being advertised in that 50%, other than Tim Hortons, obviously, which is the on-premise business. With regards to the comments of longevity of enforcement, that is a valid concern. Often the conditions of variances that are approved over time kind of do get lost over time in terms of what the stipulations of a variance were. So if council wanted more protection of the 50%, there's an opportunity to establish a covenant on title that would stay with the land as an opportunity.
Councillor Trent?
I'm not sure that the 50% is really required, just because I think it would be very difficult to enforce. I think that having a rule that it needs to be local would be more reasonable. Just because, what happens if it's 45 or 55? I just don't really think, and I would assume, or I would think that the owner of the sign would probably offer Tim Hortons as much advertising as possible because they're right next to each other. But I just don't think, I think putting in the 50% rule, while I understand why it's been suggested, I just think it's kind of like a bit of a make work project. I don't think it's going to do anything. But I would definitely, so I don't really support that portion, but I do support it being local content.
Councillor Barkle?
I don't see how you could enforce local content. If you reviewed it and said, oh, that guy's from Penticton, shouldn't have done that. What happens, right? You get into these situations where it just does not become enforceable. They say, oh, well, you can't take it away. That would be unfair. It cost us so much money. And we only ran one guy, or we only ran 3, or we only did it 6 hours. Or, you just don't want to get into that. But the bigger part is, how is it fair to every other property owner along the highway who hasn't even applied, who believes that they can't have an electronic sign for third-party advertising on their property? Why would you allow? The question is, why would you allow this property and not everybody else? Obviously, there was a sign, and the reason that this bylaw was put in place, and that's to keep the highway corridor clear and uncluttered of billboards, and that's essentially what this will become, an electronic billboard on one property, and then that's so unfair to everybody else. on the highway.
Are there any, the sign at Dairy Queen, do they have any third-party advertising on that? I think they do promote community events, don't they? No?
To answer the question, no, I don't think they do. Maybe they might have like festival lights at, like maybe a promotion that would be tied to a community event. But I don't, we're not aware at the staff level of another type of sign of this nature in town.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen?
The only other sign there is on the pullout. Rotary generally has a sign there and they advertise Rotary events and community events and farmers market and what have you. But it's not, it's just one of the mobile ones.
Councillor Peak?
My feeling about electronic signs along the highway is quite different than the opportunity for an electronic sign, even third party, within our community. This is a commercial area where people are passing by and where you promote your community, and promoting the businesses within our community is an opportunity. I wouldn't want to see a lot of third party signs in conjunction with major travel routes, but I do see in the confines of the community that there's an opportunity to do that kind of advertising.
Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of leaning towards what Councillor Barkwell is getting at. I mean, at this point, why wouldn't anybody who owns property, business or personal residence, put up, if they fit within our sign bylaw, put on a sign on their property that they could then sell third-party advertising to? I just don't think it's a precedent that I like personally.
Do we have a size restriction on signs that can be on the highway? Can someone put like that enormous thing when you enter Penticton that blinds you when you come in? Would that be allowed here?
To the mayor. Yes, we do have restrictions on sign sizes. I don't know it off the top of my head, but they are restrictive. And as far as I remember, this sign was pretty much maximum, because they were concerned it was too large, and they actually even came to us and we checked it, so it is within. So I don't think they're allowed to be any larger than that one is. So that's our restrictions.
Okay, Mr. Delvin?
Yeah, just to confirm as well, I do know that we do restrict billboards. We have that different definition for those within our sign bylaw. We don't consider the sign a billboard. It's a freestanding sign, which is defined differently, which is permissible on private property.
Thanks. Councillor Barco?
Yeah, I referred to the highway corridor, but Councillor Betts is right. I mean, for all time, it's I can't say every community, but certainly in Summerland, third-party advertising has not been allowed in the downtown area, anywhere. It just opens up a can of worms that most communities have seen being wise enough to avoid. So I really couldn't support third-party advertising on it, on this one, or any other one.
Okay, so we need somebody to put a motion on the table.
I'll bring it forward as written by staff.
Okay, so that's to approve
Yes.
the variance. Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Peak seconding. So this is a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know what, I'm gonna admit that I'm following Councillor Barkwell and Councillor Betts. Just down the highway, we've got the new Circle K sign. And if we allow this as a third party, what would stop their signage at that corner to come with an electronic sign and for third party advertising? So I have to agree. I've kind of changed my mind, and I think I'll side with Councillor Barkwell. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Van Elfen?
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying it too, that I believe. I'm following Council Barkle on this one. I don't, it's not, I don't know. I'm not in favor of this. Where does it start? Where does it stop? You go Trout Creek, gas station there could do it. Fruit stands could possibly do it. It's nonstop. I mean, yeah, they are out there, but the ones on the way to Penticton, that's on First Nation land. The ones in Kelowna, that's all on First Nations land. And that's why they have them, because the cities don't allow them. So, I can't support it. So I'll be supporting Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, Councillor Trainer.
I have a question to staff for clarification. So if this is denied, this is just regarding third-party advertising. So they could still advertise, they could still rent the sign to Tim Hortons. Is that correct?
Your worship, to Councillor Turner. Yeah, we are considering Tim Hortons to be an on-premise business, so that would be the only business that could advertise on the sign. Unless another business did move in on that property in the future.
Well, what about the business? Is it the same property that the former Vietnamese restaurant? So a business could move in there and they can advertise too, I guess. Okay, Councillor Peak and then else.
Thank you. I want to clarify then. Signs of this size, if this went through, could go on any property along the highway in Summerland?
Go ahead.
Your worship, Councillor Peak. Yes, I think if it does meet our freestanding sign regulations, it sounds like they inquired it by Shannon and found the maximum. Normally the cost of this type of a digital sign is a significant barrier to someone installing. But theoretically, yeah, they could be installed on private property if it's zoned commercial and allows this type of commercial signage.
Councillor Vanel?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So it could only be on commercial. So if it wasn't a commercial property, it wouldn't be allowed. And it couldn't be bigger, couldn't be a billboard. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nelson?
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor, just through the planner. So then, our director, sorry. I believe that property is all owned by Tim Hortons.
It's just owned by the same owner. Yeah, not Tim Hortons per se.
Yeah.
Okay, so of no further discussion, the motion is to approve the variance. I'll call the question. All in favor? Councillor Peak, all opposed? And that's defeated. Officer, do we need another motion or that's just it? Okay. So carry on, item 9.2, OCP and zoning amendment for that will be Director of Development Services, please.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Let's wait for there it is. Slides come on. So the district's in receipt of an official community plan and rezoning application to allow for the construction of a 4-story 51-room hotel, as well as that'll be consolidated onto 2 parcels that are on Rosedale Avenue, and then also an 84-unit rental apartment building consolidated onto 2 properties, 9514, 9518 Julia Street, facing Julia Street. This is just northwest of the Rosedale intersection with Highway 97, just to orientate everyone here. So with regards to our current planning documents, the official community plan provides that this area, these 4 lots, are to be designated low density residential. And then on top of that as well, with our zoning bylaw, the 2 most easterly lots are zone RSD1, our residential medium lot zoning, and then the 2 westerly lots are currently zoned institutional. And I do want to point out as well on the map, you can see the purple to the south across from Julia Street is our current tourist commercial designation. And that's kind of like a gateway designation for commercial businesses coming off Highway 97. So specifically with the proposal from the developer, there's 2 buildings being proposed. I mentioned 84 unit apartment building. This is a 6-story building that will be set back on the 6th story from the building plane of the wall, and then a 4-story 51 room hotel building located on the properties, and I'll get into where they're located here. So the applicant has provided some conceptual renderings as to the forming character of these 2 buildings. I do want to mention that there will be the requirements for a forming character development permit specifically for the apartment building as a further planning application. And so right now we are evaluating just the land use considerations for allowing these 2 buildings to move forward at this location. So with the main floor plan, this is for the hotel. Most of the common areas are on the main floor of the building. There's actually 2 lobby areas. Going up on the slide is actually pointed west, and going down is pointed east. So there's one entrance coming off the street frontage from the Rosedale Avenue to the east, and then another frontage to the lobby and visiting area to the hotel, facing an internal driveway, which I'll show on a further slide, for where most people will be coming to check in. You can see the shape of the hotel building. Again, going down, there's a bit of an internal courtyard amenity area as part of the hotel development that is just exterior to the walls there, and provides a bit of amenity for the hotel patrons. And then the remaining 3 stories, floors the 2nd to the 4th floor, have basically the replica of the same floor plan here. A total of 17 rooms per floor for the next 3 stories. And that's where we get to the 51 total for rooms for the hotel. With regards to the apartment building, there's some conceptual renderings here as well. The main floor, as well as provided, shows a number of common amenity areas that are indoor. There's a bit of a courtyard to this, again, looking up on the slide is pointed west. So west before you go to the residential area further to the west. There is a bit of a jog in the building to create a little more space from the existing low density residential area that's located to the west. Just continuing here. For the most part, there are some tweaks, I think, but for the most part, the floor plans for the floors 2nd to the 5th floor are fairly similar. The units range from 1-bedroom units to 2-bedroom units that are being proposed. All of the units are geared to rental housing accommodation, not for strata ownership. Should clarify that as well. And then on the top floor, which is set back on the building with a external balcony that's wrapping the top of the 5th floor. And they also have some indoor amenity areas for the patrons of the apartment building on this top floor. So I mentioned this internal shared driveway that's located on the property. It's located between the 2 buildings going north from Julia Street. The idea is that this shared driveway would provide the access to both buildings, and the parking that is being proposed is being satisfied through underground parking stalls to be constructed an underground parkade that'll be fairly like constructed across the entire property for both buildings, but there'll be two separate entrance points, one for the hotel and one for the apartment building, and sloping down from the shared entrance. So this, although you can't really see too well, this shows the underground parkade plan. So the main parkade floor, which will slope down from the two entrances, there'll be one entrance going to the hotel, and then another one to the north you see going to the apartment building. There is bicycle parking also located within the parkade, access to elevators, etc. And then as you go to the apartment building, if you look further to the left on the slide here, there's a second level to the parkade required for the apartment building. I should clarify as well that parking was discussed at length with the public at two various open houses that we've had through the review process of this application. And following the first open house, the applicant has increased the number of parking stalls from what was originally proposed in their original plans. Initially, they proposed to just meet the bylaw requirements primarily of both the apartment a building with regards to the number of units required, as well as for the hotel, but they actually increased the parking for both buildings through expansion of the underground parkade. The applicant has also provided a detailed landscaping plan. I don't want to go through this in detail because it'll be discussed more so at the development permit stage, but they do provide that with ground floor kind of community amenity areas for both buildings. So now getting into the specific requests for tonight is starting with the official community plan amendment is to consolidate two lots to redesignate from low density residential to high density residential within the district's official community plan. And then as well, for the furthest east parcels to also be redesignated from low density residential to tourist commercial to allow for these two uses to occur. With regards to the zoning bylaw request, you can see here that there is some site specific provisions that are being requested to allow for this density. I do want to clarify a bit about this. So within the high density residential application, so that's the one furthest to the west, we currently have a floor area ratio of I think it's 1.6 that we allow for density bonusing within the high density residential zone. The site specific request is to increase that density bonus provision from 1.6 to 2.67 with the payment of a density bonus payment, which is a $1 charge per unit. And then for the commercial application, the tourist commercial application to the west, east, they are also looking for a maximum height of 13 meters or 13.8 meters on 4 stories. And a floor area ratio of 1.65 to allow for the density proposed with the hotel use. So just a comparison of, again, what's in our zone and our current zoning versus what's being requested. You can see 1.6 is within our residential high density zone. They're proposing 2.67. With regards to height, specifically with the apartment building, the zoning being requested tonight is does not include the height variance that is being requested to allow for this building. The thought process is that council and the public can evaluate the land use first of these two buildings to see if this is appropriate for this location. And then the consideration of going from 4 to 6 stories in height could be evaluated through a variance process as part of that development permit I mentioned. That'll be required at a later point in time. So that's the intent of structuring it that way. So the land use right now being considered for the zoning change is just 4 stories right now at the maximum. For the hotel use, I mentioned the change there as well for the floor area ratio going from 1.0 to 1.65. And then as well, there is the requirement for a, or request, sorry, I should say, for 4 stories for the hotel use as opposed to 2 within our bylaw. So I do want to mention, though, that despite our zoning bylaw, the applicant's definite intention is to build the 6 stories. There will be probably a request for a variance in the near future for the development permit to be issued to get to that 6th level. And here's the elevation drawing here for the hotel building height. So in discussions with the applicant, we considered that with the amount of density that's being proposed for these 2 buildings in this location being a significant departure from our official community plan, and also what has been intended in that area, that we've requested at the staff level that they provide a community amenity contribution in addition to that density bonus payment, as I mentioned. Specifically, and I'll get into a bit of this within our downtown neighborhood action plan, there was the identification of building a gateway feature for the intersection of Rosedale Avenue and Highway 97. And that's where the idea of this conceptual plan for an entry plaza as amenity contribution was provided by the applicant. You can see that there's some conceptual renderings here of a new sign that would kind of delineate that you've come into the community for southbound traffic that are on Highway 97, saying that you've entered the district of Summerland, as well as an art feature of some sort. They have some sort of art feature there right now. They signify that you've entered a community. And then as well, there'd be a bit of a community gathering place for both the patrons of the hotel and the apartment building, but also the general community to connect from Rosedale as well as Turner Street and then Highway 97 with different pedestrian crossings. So in terms of our official community plan and what's provided within the official community plan, there's a number of policy statements that we've reviewed to bring this application forward to council. Specifically with the application of the high density residential designation, it's the OCP states that it should be located along major transportation routes where there are areas, the areas that are close to the downtown core, to have an attractive architectural design, and where we were recommending a density greater than 60 units per hectare. Further, there's residential objectives in our OCP to accommodate a range and choice of housing types throughout the community, to support implementable options to accommodate affordable forms of housing, and that new residential development should be located in areas that can be efficiently serviced. With regards to the tourist commercial designation, the policy statements within the OCPs indicate that there should be sufficient location opportunities to accommodate commercial operations, to accommodate a range of needs for both residents of Summerland and visitors to Summerland. And that this designation is to promote the role and function of the downtown as the primary commercial core, but also allow supporting uses in and around the downtown. It also clarifies within our OCP that the tourist commercial designation should be limited in its placement basically from the intersection of Rosedale Avenue all the way to Prairie Valley Road intersection along the highway, in terms of encouraging any further encroachment of commercial into other areas. Just most recently at the planning level, we've updated and created a new plan for the downtown core. This is our downtown neighborhood action plan. This was done in 2021 with council and the community. And although these recommendations haven't been implemented yet in our planning documents, which is still to come in 2024, there were some recommendations in that plan that are in conformance with this application that's been brought forward. Specifically was the application and creation of a new gateway commercial designation in our OCP. The recommendation from the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan was to support commercial uses, including tourist accommodation specifically, and a hotel use in particularly within the gateway commercial designation, as well as to encourage a mix of uses, including additional residential density in those areas. But there was some guidance within this designation that this commercial base should not compete with the downtown core, but instead complement it, i.e. be more tourist oriented. Hotels and motels were specifically targeted and encouraged within the designation. And then the intent was, from the discussions with the Downtown Neighborhood Plan Task Force, was to try to attract a hotel in the downtown core. As well, there was some recommendations for the zoning side for gateway commercial to consider 6 stories as well as a maximum height, to increase the floor area ratio of 3 to 3.0, and also having a site coverage of 50%. I mentioned earlier that entry plaza that the applicant is proposing, there was some guidance previously provided within the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan to create these gateway entry features of feeling of a distinct community area that you'd be entering into. And there was some sample imagery from other communities provided here, key intersections in other communities to kind of follow for, and that's where we've pointed the applicant in that direction. There was 2 kind of main entry points off the highway. One was Rosedale and Highway 97, and then also Prairie Valley Road and Highway 97. So with regards to internal comments of this application, I'm not going to go through all of those. And sorry about the small type, but it is in the staff report. But in general, staff has indicated the applicant be required to reconstruct Julia Street and Rosedale Avenue up to the center line of the road, including pavement, curb, gutter, and sidewalk construction, which will be required to be connected to the existing sidewalk as you go further down Rosedale Avenue. There'll be new services required for water and sewer, but in general, there's no large main extensions required to service this development, given the existing servicing capacity in the area. Fire department has indicated that with a 6-story building, there will need to be a fire equipment room for them to access for this scale of building. And then our electrical utility has indicated that for these type of large scale projects, that electrical transformers have a very long lead time, and they would need to apply for an electrical service early. External comments. So with regards to an amendment to our official community plan, we under section 475 of the Local Government Act, we have to consider circulating amendments to our OCP to First Nations, as well as other organizations such as Ministry of Transportation. We are required to circulate it to School District 67, and which we have done that, and we haven't received any comments back. We have received some comments from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and following the completion of a traffic impact assessment done by the applicant, which was also another requirement of us at the staff level, they provided a conditional approval of this application with them providing further details as to expansion of a left turn lane on Highway 97 coming onto Rosedale Avenue, which was a recommendation from the traffic impact assessment. Some great comments were received from both BC Transit and Interior Health. I'm not going to go through their comments, but generally of support for this project, and due to its location and walkability to amenities. You can read their detailed comments in the package. With regards to the traffic impact assessment, I do want to kind of clarify that, because this has been an area of discussion with the community. There was a number of recommendations in the traffic impact assessment. Specifically, I mentioned the highway left turn bay turning lane to be extended, but also on Turner Street for additional line painting for left turn lanes on eastbound traffic. And so the applicant is been requested by us at the staff level to provide a detailed plan on how they plan to upgrade the intersection with Turner Street and Rosedale Avenue to improve those markings. With regards to our advisory planning commission, we presented this application to the APC at their meeting of February 24th, 2023. In general, to summarize their comments, the most were in support of the application and the uses being prescribed in this application. But there was a larger concern about this transition of this level of density being applied to this area in this existing low density residential area. And you can see that through their resolutions at the Advisory Planning Commission, they first resolved to recommend support for the land use changes. That's the first resolution that they provided, which are being requested for first and second reading tonight. But then they had further comments following that resolution that there should be more neighborhood plan context for the immediate surrounding area from Julia Street to Turner Street, and also going from all the way from Rosedale to Victoria with regards to plunking this amount of density in that area and more of a transition. So with that focus, they provided a second resolution here that the APC further recommends the completion of a neighborhood plan to study further the OCP designation surrounding the development to have a better transition of density around the subject property. So I just want to comment out as well on that recommendation. The applicant has tried to address that resolution, and I will discuss a little bit more on. They have provided us a massing study, which is in the architectural plans that are in the council's attachment for how the District of Summerland could consider a better transition of density away from their proposal going west of their subject property along Julia Street and Turner Street. And I will get into that a bit in this presentation. So in terms of the application of the different uses, in terms of discussion, staff note that for tourist commercial, although the placement of this designation is an existing single family area, we do know that there is a tourist commercial designation adjacent to the property to the south, and this is a key intersection of Rosedale and Highway 97, where there could be a tourist commercial type focus of this intersection. We also feel that the high density residential use being on the west side of the hotel use provides a bit of a buffer to the existing residential community in terms of any potential noise impacts from a hotel use. You would have that larger scale kind of residential use being a bit of a buffer. We also note at the staff level that a key finding from the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan was to try to attract a new hotel in our downtown core. And this can be done in support of the existing business community to provide more traveling tourists coming into our community to shop and support our existing downtown businesses. And as well, finally, that we also note that the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan recommended that the gateway commercial designation be applied to these subject properties and also encourage a hotel use. With regards to the high density residential designation, the staff notes that there is a detailed criteria list within our official community plan of the application of higher density uses or new high density uses within our OCP. And just a quick review of those criteria. This application does meet the majority of that criteria. It's close to the downtown core. It has proximity to a major collector, which Rosedale is a collector road, and also arterial roads being Highway 97. There is existing pedestrian access to the downtown, as well as parks and schools via the sidewalk on Rosedale Avenue currently. I mentioned earlier that the OCP indicates that there should be a range of different types of housing types within our community, and the consideration of rental accommodation for 1 to 2 bedroom units is something that's a bit unique within our community. I think it would be addressing that key pillar of the OCP with trying to create housing that caters to different demographics within our community. These are rental units, so and that as well has been identified in the district's housing needs assessment, where the majority of our housing households within our community are renter households, and the greater portion of those are in core housing need compared to owner households within our community. I mentioned the massing study provided by the applicant. I'm almost done my presentation. Bear with me. This is what was provided in the plan. You can see that they have some stacked townhousing immediately adjacent to the proposed application, and then there's some row housing along Julia Street proposed, and then single family further to the north and to the west being proposed. We think that this does achieve the potential transition goal of what the Advisory Planning Commission was indicating. And we've considered this matching study, and we reviewed it, and while there are some changes we would probably recommend to council, we do think that these land uses are generally supportable, and we are going to be looking to and consider these type of land use changes as part of the downtown OCP amendments that we are moving forward with in 2024 with regards to the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan, which is another implementation project of that plan. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to any questions, and we are recommending that we proceed for first and second reading, and that we schedule a public hearing for July 16th for this application. Thank you.
January, maybe.
January, thank you. January.
Okay, thank you for a very detailed presentation. Councillor Peak.
Well, I have to acknowledge that I believe our community can do with a hotel. And to have a hotel that's within walking distance of the main downtown commercial area to reinforce the opportunity for economic development in many ways, both retail and our amenities is a wonderful thing. So I think that this would be very welcome. It gives the opportunity as well because we can enhance if we're making it a gateway, it can be planned, which would be very helpful. And we know that we need more affordable housing, and 1 and 2 bedroom units are very useful. And I know that they made them affordable because they went through CMHC for their mortgaging, which sort of dictates how they can use those funds. So we know it will stay within that for a certain length of time at any rate. So I think this is a very useful addition to our community and will be welcome. I like the architecture that they've done. And I like the fact that they're doing parking underground and they're going to do the landscaping outside. I think it'll be very attractive.
Okay, Councillor Betts.
Thank you, and thank you to our Director of Planning for that really thorough just investigation of the project. I think it's really interesting for us to be able to see it. Thank you, Councillor Peak, for your points. I agree with that. I think that having a hotel in town that we can have sports teams come and stay at. You have other high schools when they're coming for tournaments, actually come and stay in our community and use and visit our small businesses rather than staying in Penticton and using their small businesses and just coming here for games. This is a real addition to our community. As well, adding apartment housing, I think is a real opportunity that we need. Obviously, that's just part of the discussion right now in our society, that the need for more rental housing. I will note that, of course, on Rosedale, that's a public transit route. We're close to the schools, or at least the middle and high school. The other one's a little further, but I think this is a really interesting project. I like the entry plaza and how that can really contribute to that corner of Summerland and make it more of a welcome into our community. So I think this is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't agree more. I'm excited about this proposal. I'd like, it'll be interesting. I think it would be a real added plus to our community. Councillor Beth hit the nail on the head, like how many times, like I've been involved in hockey and, tournaments in town, and 90% of the people stay in Penticton with their children. We're losing a lot. Prior to my life here, I was a business owner, but president of the chamber or director of the chamber, how many times we tried to get a hotel on the highway? Good luck, and here's an opportunity. And I remember my first time on council, there's another gentleman in our gallery this evening that was with me, and I think we both supported the idea of the Jehovah Kingdom Hall moving from those two institutional lots across this highway to be a Joni on septic. And I was so excited because here we had two lots that were on sewer. And I thought some density is needed. And so I'm excited to see this, and I'm hoping that, I attended both open houses. And yeah, there was some feedback, some concerns from the local neighbors on traffic and traffic calming and different things like that. But I think a lot of that can be achieved. And I like the idea of the added amenity, that gateway, some public art, public walkway, public seating areas, it's just attractive, and I think it's much needed at that area. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's no questions, would someone like to put a motion on the table? Councillor Van Elsen?
I'll bring forward the staff recommendation to provide first and second reading.
Okay, thank you. To bring it to a public hearing on the 16th. Second, Councillor Peak, any further discussion? Certainly it checks a lot of boxes, I think. Be very interested to hear what the public have to say. Councillor Peak.
If I might add, in terms of economic driver, a hotel that can do small conferences and regional meetings is extremely useful in terms of attracting people into the area, allowing the opportunity for them to visit around, and it brings in dollars as well. But it sort of highlights your communities when you're able to do conferences and regional meetings, and that's a real nice opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's none opposed. That carries. Item 9.3, water utility rates. Director of Finance, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So over the past few months, staff have been working on the 2024 water, sewer, and electrical budgets. Council reviewed and deliberated the proposed budgets on November 20th and directed staff to present the proposed budgets along with the proposed rate increases at the December 6th, 2023 virtual public open house. Attendance at the virtual house was low. Only 4 members of the public actually signed in. We have posted the presentation on our YouTube channel, and I checked it about 15-20 minutes ago, and the presentation has been viewed 48 times. I would like to take just a few minutes to provide a very high overview of the 3 utility budgets prior to summarizing the financial impacts to typical residents. As today's presentation will be very brief, I would strongly encourage any residents who may have questions about the utility budgets or their proposed rate increases to not only watch the December 6th open house on the YouTube, but to also review the budget documents on our website. So the proposed electric operating budget for 2024 is $16.09 million. The district's largest vendor is FortisBC, from whom we purchase power. Our 2024 budget anticipates we will purchase $10.94 million in electricity from Fortis. Our wholesale power costs are estimated to increase over $700,000 from last year, by way of Fortis's 6.74% rate increase. Now, we were able to absorb part of this increase through some of the billing changes that we implemented last year. However, a 3% rate increase is being proposed for 2024. An additional component to this budget is that council has earmarked $447,324 as an asset management reserve contribution. The proposed 2024 capital plan is $2.68 million, and that includes 12 projects. And just to note, the entire 5-year capital plan for the electrical utility is fully funded and does not require any debt servicing. In terms of sewer, our proposed sewer operating budget for 2024 is $2.76 million. With the extinguishment of the sewer treatment plant debt, not only did debt payments fall off the table, but so did some of our revenue sources, specifically parcel taxes and the Okanagan Basin Water Board grants. The loss of these revenue sources put the sewer utility in a large deficit, and after much deliberation, council resolved to reestablish the $200 parcel tax for the next 4 years. A 4-year period was chosen, as throughout the budget process, staff have been reviewing other local governments' sewer billing models, and based on the direction of council, we will be exploring alternative solutions that may help reduce the district's operating deficit in future years by increasing some of our revenues. Some alternatives that other municipalities use, they vary from billing on a percentage of metered water per household to flat rate charges on properties based on usage. So a restaurant will be charged differently than a single family home, would be charged differently than a winery. Now, this type of review can be quite extensive and very labor intensive and time consuming. So council has provided a 4-year window to see this initiative be implemented. In terms of asset management, council has earmarked $53,152 as an asset management reserve contribution. And the capital plan, $6.28 million, that is for 8 projects. The 5-year capital plan does include 2 projects that are budgeted to be financed through $6 million worth of debt borrowing, one of which I believe we're discussing later on this evening. Now, in terms of the water utility, our operating budget is $7.71 million. And like 2023, our water utility continued to get hit hard with soaring chemical and chlorine costs, which of course we need to treat our drinking water. Approximately 50% of the required 6.78% rate increase is due to cover the increased costs of chemicals. So due to these increased costs, no additional asset management reserve contributions were proposed in this 2024 plan. Additionally, this capital plan for 2024 is $6.77 million, which includes 16 capital projects. And the 5-year capital plan includes 3 projects that are budgeted to be financed through $11.5 million worth of debt. So what does that mean to the typical homeowner? With a 6.78% water rate increase, a typical home will see an increase in their water rates of $62.04 annually, or $517 a month. And on the electric side, at a 3%, an increase of $51.36 a year. So in total, an overall increase for our utilities of $113.40 annually, or just under $10. And that's it for my presentation. Mayor Holmes, if there's any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? This has been around the ringer a few times. If no questions, we'll need somebody to bring in the motion. Councillor Trainer, bring it forward. Councillor Van Alphen. Any discussion? I think our Director of Finance summarized it fairly well and what we're up against and how we dealt with it. So, so yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate the work and yeah. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Item 9.4, the financial plan. Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the adoption of the last financial plan amendment bylaw, council has further directed staff to amend the financial plan to add $110,000 to conduct roof repairs on the Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center in 2023. So the funding for this project has been allocated from the General Fund Capital Works Reserve. Council has approved this project and this amendment is required to ensure the financial plan is accurate based on the direction of council. And it's before you for the first 3 readings. Thank you.
Okay, council. Thank you. Second, Councillor Patton, any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed, that carries. 9.5, wastewater treatment plant primary clarifier. Director of Finance.
Thank you again. At the November 20th utility budget meeting, council was presented with the sewer utilities 2023 to 2028 5-year financial plan. The primary clarifier project was identified as an important project that is budgeted for in 2024. The full cost of this project is budgeted at $2.73 million and originally was proposed to be funded 100% through debt. However, during budget deliberations, council resolved to utilize $1.5 million of capital reserves to lower the proposed debt borrowing to $1.23 million. Now, in order for the district to move forward with the process of debt financing and the creation of a loan authorization bylaw, 2 decisions are required today. The first being the term or the length of the borrowing, and the second is how the annual debt payments will be collected from residents. The report provides 3 alternative options for the term of borrowing, 15, 20, and 25 years. And within each of those options, there are 2 alternatives on how to collect the annual debt payments, either through a parcel tax or a sewer rate increase. And I will note that the staff recommendation is that the annual debt payments be recovered through a sewer rate increase. Projected annual payments in the report range from $21.94 on a 25-year term collected as a sewer rate increase to $32.39 on a 15-year term collected as a parcel tax. Staff are seeking council direction on how to proceed with both the term and repayment options and can answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Staff recommending a term? No. Councillor Barkwell.
The clarifier that we have, it's kind of end of life, right? About 25 years old. So presumably, and the parallel clarifier, backup clarifier, I guess it'll be the primary one, will last 25 years before it needs major work. I mean, just because I try to sort of balance the debt repayment with the life of the asset. If it was a 5-year asset, you wouldn't borrow for 20 years, right?
So that would be a great question for our Director of Utilities. My understanding is that the primary clarifier would probably have between probably a 20 to a 30-year life expectancy. Now, where exactly that falls in, I'm not exactly sure, but somewhere within that time period, I would imagine.
Councillor Van Elst.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would look at option C, the 25-year term.
Okay, Councillor Peak.
I
would agree with a 25-year term, and I would do it with the sewer rate increase.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you. Through to our Director of Finance, just a point for clarification. When we're talking about borrowing in these long terms, similar to a mortgage, if we're looking at, for example, a 15-year term, the benefit, though the payment would be higher, the benefit is that we're paying less interest in the long run. Is that correct? Or sorry, I must have said that wrong. That we would pay more interest on the 25-year.
Correct.
Yes, as everybody as a whole, all the residents who are paying into the sewer utility. And just as a point of clarification, so only our sewer utility users, property owners are paying this sewer rate increase. Is that correct?
So should council move forward with a rate increase or a parcel tax, it would be the sewer users that would be paying for that debt.
Which makes sense. Thanks for your clarification. And then, so we're primarily looking at the length of term borrowing to balance the overall amount that we're paying in the long run, essentially. Thank you.
Councillor Barkle.
And as far as the whether it should be a parcel tax or a sewer rate increase, obviously, I think that the sewer rate increase is the way to go for the reasons he spoke about, considering, you know, why the current parcel tax was only extended for 4 years. And that gives us the flexibility once we do a rate review for the sewer. I personally would lean towards a 20-year borrowing period, just because you'd like to get that cleared off a little bit sooner for whatever comes up down the road, but in 2025, it's very debatable. I can vote for either.
Councillor Peak.
This question goes to the treasurer. Dave, when we're doing our borrowing through the Municipal Finance Authority, I make note that the interest rates are pretty high right now. How often does it come open that they might change?
So through the mayor, once a loan authorization bylaw is approved by council and the public, and we start the process of borrowing funds, our initial debt borrowing is locked in for 10 years. And then subsequent to that, we refinance every 5 years through the MFA.
So just have a question here. So this, I don't know if you can answer this, but hopefully somebody can. So this is being motivated mainly due to changes in provincial regulation that we build redundancy into our sewage treatment system. Now, when we first built this without the redundancy, back when it wasn't required, we received some grants from OBWB, no? Or is that, what was that OBWB grants for? And if there's any way we can leverage any grant funding?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the OBWB funding was specifically because we were building a sewer treatment plant. It was specific to getting properties off of septic systems and converted onto a treatment system. The program still exists. It's a program that we're going to be looking at trying to leverage once the Deer Ridge sewer project moves forward. In terms of the primary clarifier, as the original one was built for the purpose of moving those properties away, I wouldn't anticipate us getting any funding for that. I will, however, put a phone call through to OBWB to confirm that. but my gut is telling me that they probably won't fund it because they've already funded it once. And the primary goal and function of that program is to move properties away from using septic systems. Now, with that being said, we've had probably more properties come online over the years. So if there's some juggling and some math we can do with OBW to try to get some funding, we will absolutely do it.
Yeah, it might be something we need to raise at the political level and even consider a UBCM resolution. I find it really difficult when local taxpayers are burdened with, or ratepayers are burdened with something that's because of a change in provincial regulations. You know, that's what I always have a problem with. Councillor Peak.
If I might say too, in terms of the monies that we have available from our ratepayers to pay for any of our infrastructure, I feel that the province should really be paying a portion of our ALR as tax money to us, because they are the ones that say the ALR is sacrosanct and must be there, and we don't collect taxes on it. And I think there really is an opportunity that they step up when they're the ones that set that land aside, that we are able to receive tax funds from the provincial pocket towards our community to support the infrastructure to have a community. And I know that we are looking at making that motion and working it through with UBCM.
Thank you. They're not really on sewer, so I don't know if it'd be relevant to this case, but Councillor Turner.
I will bring forward a motion.
Okay.
Okay, I will bring forward option B because it meets in the middle. It's a little bit more, ratepayers are paying a little bit more than option C, about $3. But I think to get it off the books 5 years sooner, it's worth it. It'll also save us, depending on interest rates, but about $200,000. I think that option A would also be good, but that is now we're getting up into $30, so that's a bit much. So I'm putting option B on the table.
Okay, and that's parcel tax or rate increase?
Rate increase.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Patton. Any further discussion? Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to our Director of Finance. So if we go ahead with this project, let's say we choose option B and Deer Ridge starts to come online, Taylor Place and lands beyond Deer Ridge per se, they get developed. Will those parcel or those sewer taxes we collect up there, will that help reduce this debt? Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I'll call the question then. All in favor? None opposed, that carries. Item 9.6, Prairie Valley Road upgrades, Director of Finance.
Thank you. So at this morning's general fund capital budget meeting, council again was presented with the general fund 2023 to 2028 5-year financial plan and upgrading Prairie Valley Road. And that's between Morrow Ave and Cartwright Ave. It was identified as an important project, which is also budgeted for 2024. The full cost of this project is budgeted at $3.315 million. There's a water component to this. So the water main replacement portion of this project is budgeted at $815,000. And that is being proposed to be funded from the Water Capital Reserve. So the remaining $2.5 million for road reconstruction has been budgeted to be funded through debt. And just like the last conversation we have, to move this forward and to create the loan authorization bylaw, we do need 2 decisions of council this evening. Again, the first one being the term, and then the second one, how the annual debt payments will be collected from residents. And like the last report, there are 3 alternative options, one for 15 years, one for 20, and one for 25. And with each of those options, there are 2 additional alternatives to collect the debt, either through a parcel tax or a property tax rate increase. Based on the charts and the graphs in the presentation, the payments will range from $30.27 on a 25-year term collected as a parcel tax to $41.98 on a 15-year term collected as property tax rate increase. And again, staff are seeking some council direction on how to proceed with both of those.
Thank you. And is there a staff recommendation?
There is no staff recommendation.
Okay. thank you.
However, I would just like to clarify, this is a 2024 capital project. Should the AAP process and this go through, we would be going to a fall borrowing in 2024. So any rate increases or parcel tax increases that council is considering won't come into effect until 2025.
Okay. And there's no recommendation parcel tax or property tax? Okay, thank you. Council, any question? Councillor Barkwell.
I guess it's not really so much a question as that I'll just say as before, I think I'd prefer to see option B, 20 years. It kind of matches the length of the asset. Would probably be repaving somewhere 20 years down the road. And that I think a property tax increase is appropriate because all of our roads and such are funded by property taxes. And this, we all know that's a badly needed section of road that to be rebuilt. That heavy traffic on it is only going to get heavier with more and more trucks and people out that way. Thanks.
Good. Did you want to bring that motion forward?
Sure. I'll take it forward and then we can have something on the table to discuss. So I move that go back up top here to that the council direct staff to initiate the process of debt financing for options B as outlined in the December 19th, 2023 Prairie Valley Road upgrade or Avenue to Cartwright Avenue financing options report to council from the Director of Finance with annual debt payments to be collected through a property tax increase.
Okay, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Van Elfen. Discussion? Councillor Patton.
You're on. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Worship. I agree with Councillor Barkwell. I think that this section of road is one section of road that we need to get repaired. It is at times can be dangerous and rough. I know we did some patchwork earlier in the year for it, and thank Public Works for that. But I do agree that option B at 20-year borrowing on this on property tax is a safe way to go. And it was nice to see through our budget deliberations that we've done for the last 2 days, where we were able to bring down the cost of this using our reserve funds. So yeah, I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Councillor Peak.
Yes, I definitely agree, and I agree with option B on this. It's a very well trafficked area, and it's where people travel to go out on the landfill as well. So I think it's very important that we get it done.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? Not, I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. 9.7 Rotary Club Peer Fundraising Committee. Corporate Officer, please.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So the Summerland Rotary Club has submitted their terms of reference for the Summerland Rotary Club Peer Fundraising Community Committee. The purpose of the committee is to assume several tasks associated with the peer enhancements, fundraising initiatives, including creating a framework for donation categories, establishing donor recognition guidelines, and setting a timeline for fundraising activities and setting fundraising targets. Membership of the committee will include service club representatives, business owners, and community leaders. The Rotary Club is requesting council consideration of appointing a council representative to join the committee. So staff are looking for council to appoint one member to the committee as well as an alternate, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Alphen, you're volunteering?
Nope. I'd like to nominate Councillor Betts and Councillor Peak as the alternate. Thank you very much.
Okay, first I have to ask if Councillor Betts would accept that nomination.
Sure.
And Councillor Peak, will you accept being the alternate?
No, I'm going to decline. I'm covering two other committees already, and one is as the main and one is a alternate, and I have other volunteer work within the community that takes a lot of my time. So I'm going to decline that offer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Corporate officer, we can do this as two separate motions, I guess. Okay, so well, let's just do I have a seconder for the Councillor Betts as the
I nominate Councillor Van Alphen as the second, the alternate.
oh, okay, so we're doing it all as one.
And I'll happily decline. Thank you so much.
So I suggested we separate. All right, well, anyone else? Why don't we just, okay, the motion's on the table for Councillor Betts to be the appointee. Do I have a seconder for that? We'll do it separately, split out. Second, Councillor Patton seconding. Any discussion with Councillor Betts being the representative? I'll call the question. All in favor? Yeah, you can, yeah. That carries. You can vote against if you want. Okay, so that carries. And now as an alternate, Councillor Trainer.
Unless anybody else wants to, I will.
Second that.
My kids will be using this pier for a long time, so I should put my time in.
Okay.
So if no one else wants to, I will.
No, that's, yeah, and that's seconded. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, so no bylaws for adoption. Notice of motion. Does anybody have a notice of motion? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to bring forward for next meeting, requesting council consider providing a letter to the KVR as they are pursuing historical designation with the province of BC. So our corporate officer has kindly said she would assist me with the motion for the next meeting.
Okay, so I'll come January 16th. Thank you. Anyone else? No items removed from the consent agenda. Councillor reports. Does anybody have a report? Councillor Barkwell.
I'd just like to note that at the beginning of the meeting, we quickly passed a lot of resolutions that were from the committee of the whole, and some people might think, well, what are they trying to slip by or anything? I just want to let people be assured that those are available on the internet to review if they want, and they are just simply the changes that we made to the budget and like moving a vehicle purchase from one year to the next, and a whole conglomeration of things that were changes from the budget as presented to us to arrive at the 5.38%. So there's no conspiracy to be hiding anything there. Just thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we'll be promoting the open house and the whole idea is to get as many people as possible out to the open house. Any other councillor reports? No? Councillor reports, yeah. Councillor Van Alphen.
Just like to wish everyone and all my fellow council members and yourself, Mr. Mayor and Deputy Mayor and staff, a Merry Christmas. See you in the new year.
Thank you. Councillor Trainer.
And I will wish Marty a happy birthday. He spent his entire birthday doing budget, so happy birthday.
We won't sing happy birthday again.
Thank you.
Okay, so now this is the public comment period. Now, we have 15 minutes for this. If there's more people who want to speak after 15 minutes, it's council prerogative to extend it if they so wish. It will be 2 minutes per person speaking, and there'll be a timer there. So you'll have to monitor yourself up on the screens for the 2 minutes. I'll be cutting you off in 2 minutes. I won't give you a warning. And also just a reminder that council won't be answering any questions. We're here to listen for 2 minutes. And then I would just ask you to give your time to the next person speaking. We've had a number of people pre-registered to speak, so I'll call them up first. And then after they've come up, if there's time, we'll take more. So first, I'd like to ask Les Brow to come up. Yeah, just push the red button. Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Les Brough. I live on Rosedale Avenue. I am a dog lover. I have owned dogs most of my life. I owned 2 dogs until I moved into my apartment. And but I am opposed to a permanent dog park being situated on Peach Orchard Park. Now, Holmes, you may recall that I wrote at length all of the reasons why I feel that way. So I won't repeat what I wrote, but I will give you an example of why the park has lost the reasons why it was initiated in the first place. I'm a member of the Rotary Club, and during the summer months, we always hold a barbecue or a picnic at various locations in the town. And Peach Orchard Beach Park has always been one of our favorites because of its location on the lake. And we chose not to do that this year. And the reason is because the ambience of the park is completely lost, the peacefulness, and it actually is a mess at the moment. It looks awful. And so I think we've lost an opportunity for the original reason to enjoy it. I also wrote asking if a dog park had been considered at the Ridgeline Park that's being proposed in the Eco Village, and I understand that might be a possibility. And I understand the decision was made earlier in this meeting that a decision on where a permanent park will be placed is still under discussion. But I urge you not to choose Peach Orchard Beach. Even if there are probably other locations, and one will be mentioned later in the evening.
Okay, sorry, sir, I'll have to ask you to stop now, just
Sure.
because there's so many people who'd like to speak.
Okay,
Fair.
thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Terry Sawchuk, please?
Good evening, Council. I'm here this evening to express my concerns regarding the temporary dog park at Peach Orchard Beach Park. As a new resident of Summerland, it soon became apparent after our first night, the excessive barking is disruptive to the hundreds of neighbors and park users. Summerland Council is more than generous, with many areas where dogs can run off leash, especially in the off season. There are 10 parks designated as off leash, 1 fenced dog park, and 1 fenced beach. The fact that Summerland dog owners have so many different options for taking their dogs is not well advertised or appreciated. Why has such an iconic park like Beach Orchard Park been chosen? But what has changed in the park is that 1 acre of prime grassland has been fenced off for single use. What's left of the park is maybe 1/3 of an acre for all activities, including dogs. the grass within the fenced dog park has been ripped up along with urine-soaked tree trunks. Also, according to Castanet, CHBC TV, and the Summerland Dog Owners Association, there are considerable visits from non-Summerland residents. Should the regional district of Okanagan-Similkameen be brought into this discussion regarding a permanent dog park? I believe no one here is anti-dog. We all want to promote the comfort and safety of all park users by fostering responsible dog ownership and clarifying rules, boundaries, and etiquette for a dog park relocated so that it fits all the criteria for an off-leash dog park. At this time, I would ask council to reconsider the fencing, allow the park to heal, recover, and return to its intended natural state as a park that is inclusive for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rachel Gauthier, please.
Your worship, councillors, Peach Orchard Beach Park was deemed unsuitable for a permanent dog park in multiple council votes and most recently on September 26th after a 5-month trial period. Then on November 6th, the council decided to move the project to a budget stage, 180-degree turn. At this time, a group of Summerlanders decided to compile publicly available information on the suitability of the location as a dog park, raise awareness of findings, and present data to you with possible alternative solutions and ideas. Through this research, we learned that POP is zoned as a park, and a dog park is not included in one of the principal uses. POP is zoned as PR1, indicating park and recreation. The purpose of a park and recreation zone is to provide open space and outdoor community recreation. The principal uses according to the zone includes public boat launch, public beach, playground, and outdoor recreational activities. A confined single-use dog park is not the intended use for the zoning. POP was deemed as not suitable by the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Key findings of the plan indicate that Summerland is poorly served in terms of neighborhood parks and less well served for community parks. It also stated that Summerland's provision of city, community, and neighborhood parks is below the provincial average and falls at the low end of the range compared to nearby municipalities. This was even before considering the removal of 1 acre of public parkland and designating it as a single-use dog park, thus limiting its multi-use flexibility. You are stewards of this precious public land. Stewardship is not one act, but it's careful responsibility, responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. It is your responsibility to take care of the land and to make decisions that benefit the majority of the residents you serve. You can make
Thank
decisions.
you. I'll have to cut you off now. Lisa Slyzik.
Good evening. During our research, we discovered the District of Summerland lacks a clear policy regarding the placement of dog parks. In contrast, other cities in BC and across Canada have well-defined guidelines for dog park locations, taking into account factors such as size, proximity to residential areas, playgrounds, sport fields, environmentally sensitive areas, and places of active recreation. The absence of clear policy in Summerland may result in challenges such as the Dog Owners Association advocating for a fenced dog park in an unsuitable area. For instance, the fenced dog park in Peach Orchard Park is in violation of a noise regulation bylaw, disturbing the quiet, peace, rest, enjoyment, comfort, or convenience of individuals or the public. Peach Orchard Park, being an environmentally sensitive area in close proximity to the lake, requires careful consideration. Despite its significance, there was no environmental study conducted when establishing the fenced dog park. Furthermore, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan references studies on effects of dogs on wildlife, including those around water bodies. These studies emphasize the potential negative impacts on wildlife and water quality, raising concerns about establishing a dog park on our precious waterfront land. The visual changes to the park's lawn are already quite noticeable, and prompt action is essential to preserve the beauty of Peach Orchard Park and ensure inclusivity for all members of our community. Examining the official community plan reveals policies explicitly addressing the preservation of natural environment and lakefront properties. Notably, the plan does not consider the establishment of a dog park on waterfront property, aligning with the broader preservation goals. In conclusion, our analysis suggests that utilizing the land at Peach Orchard Park for a fenced dog park is not appropriate, considering the potential violations, environmentally impact, and misalignment with existing community plans. 2 minutes.
Thanks. Mike Cosmac.
Good evening. I'm one of a group of Summerland residents who want Peach Orchard Beach Park restored to its original purpose as a park for all residents and tourists to use. Most of the people I know who agree with this can be described as dog lovers, certainly not dog haters. Many are dog owners, as my wife and I are. We agree with the Dog Owners Association in Summerland and want an off-leash, fenced-in dog park. We agree that a community of dog owners was formed down there, and this would continue whichever location is finally agreed to. What we don't agree is on the location of a proposed permanent dog park. Peach Orchard Park was created for use by all residents and tourists alike to use for recreational activities throughout the entire year. To quote one of the councillors, and has since been echoed by others, this beautiful parkland, which was once the jewel of Summerland, has become a single-use park for dogs and their owners since the 2/3 of the grassed area has become fenced in. The remainder of the area is just not used as it once was. The results of 2 opposing petitions clearly show that not only are the residents very divided on making Peach Orchard Park a single-use park, but it also appears that council is just as divided. It's time for council and staff to take a step back, continue to look at alternatives and determine the correct location for this park. And immediately remove the temporary fencing to avoid any further deterioration to the park, of which approximately 30% is already ruined, muddy, and will soon be unusable. Restore it to the off-leash 7 months a year, which worked well. Peach Orchard Campground, the rodeo grounds, district-owned parcel of land close to the Canyon View Cemetery, Living Memorial Park, and some of the ALR lands, they're all viable, better suited solutions which would be fully accessible for all users.
Thank you. Okay. Orv Robson, please.
I get to sit down. It wasn't usual. My name is Orv Robson, Mr. Mayor and Council, and I live at 6708 McDonald Place in Summerland. I've lived here for a number of years, since 1992. I've spoken from this podium many times, and I've listened to this podium in your position. You do not have an easy job trying to keep this community happy. I love dogs. We had a Gordon setter when I moved here. She was a gorgeous dog, and we walked the paws off her on the trails all over this community. My concern is, why is the council looking to put a dog park on one of the most beautiful locations in Summerland? Dogs don't care where they walk or run. To put them in this location, which should be enjoyed by everyone, not just dog owners, seems selfish. Not for the dogs, again, they don't care where they play. Other locations are certainly available away from the lake. One location could be the Living Memorial Park off Highway 97. More accessible to everyone from within the community. Thank you very much for listening. I also wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Jacob Slizek, please.
Hello. Thank you everyone for taking time to listen to us speak today. We're very fortunate that we live in a society where one of our main concerns for the people is a dog park. The location that has been provided for this temporary park is interfering with the lives of our friends, our family, neighbors, people that we interact with on a daily basis, people that make up this beautiful town. Now, I remember having my first triathlon at the park. It was traumatic, but it's a story that I'll be telling my children and my grandchildren. I remember playing soccer, frisbee, football, flying kites in the park with my friends and my classmates, bonding with them on the field trips that we took to that park. I want other kids and future generations to be able to create memories like I did. I saw people having weddings, birthday parties. The Giants had grind yoga sessions at the park. Now, the triathlon didn't happen this year, and I've only seen 1 or 2 events. Imagine all those memories we would have been able to create. Now, I love animals. I wish to have a dog someday. Let's find a solution that ensures our community can grow in a positive way for everyone. I want a dog park in this town. It's a social activity for the owners and the dogs. I trust the people of Summerland to do it properly in a suitable location. Peach Orchard Park should be restored to its original state for all children, families, and all citizens. Thank you. Merry Christmas to everyone and Happy New Year.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, council, if we want to extend it to hear other people, we can. Yeah, we would just need a motion. Councilor Barkle.
I'll move. I'd like to hear from everybody, but I don't know how long that would take. So I'll move. Could we get an idea of how many people wish to speak and then multiply by 2 minutes each or something? Would that be practical?
Well, so there's about half dozen hands. So why don't you say another 15 minutes or so? Just
I'll say another 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, let's just do it. Second, Councilor Patton, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. So anybody else, it's a first come, first serve. Just come up to the podium, please state. So people who pre-registered, we have their names and civic addresses, but if those who haven't pre-registered, just if you could state your name and civic address, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, Council. Brad Besler. Seems that it's a lot of new residents that oppose the dog park at Peach Orchard. I mean, or if he's old school, but it's a lot of new people. I'm a longtime resident. I know how that park has always been covered in geese when dogs aren't there. It's not like people were always laying on that grassy area. That grassy area was always covered in geese shit. There's still plenty of room right along the lake. All the picnic or the benches are still outside of the fence. There's plenty of grass areas still. It keeps the geese away from the unfenced grass area, which makes it cleaner for everyone. Councillor Trainer made a really good point a few council meetings ago when she said she doesn't have a dog, but she brings her kids to the new playground at Memorial Park, and that's created an amazing community. And she understands how the dog park creates a community too, and it does. There's no denying it. It's an unbelievable positive energy down at the dog park. With the pier coming up, if you make this permanent, unreal legacy that you're leaving down there with the pier and the dog park. And it's just going to be an iconic piece of Summerland. So strongly urge you all to approve it at the current location. It was worth the wait. We found it. Let's make it happen. And Merry Christmas to everyone, even you, Graham.
Can I take up your 20 seconds that's there?
Thank you.
I'll be really quick.
Yep.
I live on Turner Street and I think your traffic study was flawed. They didn't consider.
Sorry, can we just get your name?
My name is Sue. I live on Turner Street and I think the
For the
traffic
record, we need
study
your
was.
full name.
What's that?
Sorry,
Sue
for the
Panoff.
record.
Sorry, Sue Panoff. And the traffic study, I don't think they did a very good job. I live right there. I'm not sure where they expect visitors to park with rental units. Because I can't back out of my driveway as it is now if my neighbors have company.
So not sure where you're thinking visitors are going to park from this residential facility there. In regards to the dog park, I have not been able to find another fenced in dog park aside from Dale Meadows. So unless I'm missing something, the dog park down at the beach is not fenced in case anyone's wondering. It's got some fencing, but it is not completely fenced in. So it's not usable in that regard for a lot of people. I like the Peach Orchard Dog Park. I understand the concerns, so I'm not saying anything against the people that were just speaking. Why not make it smaller perhaps? But please don't close it until you find another fenced in dog area for us to play in. So we can have two. Don't close that one, then we're back to where we were before. Please don't hire another consultant either. Please, please, please. Putting it beside the highway. What were you thinking? You did see the accidents by the highway there? Yeah, finding new one. The bacteria from the ducks poop is way worse than dog poop, just to let you know, if you talk to a vet, and it's way harmful for people. But please reconsider this, the 6 stories of the hotel as well. And the balconies are facing the neighbor's yard. I don't think that's fair. The traffic is going to be a nightmare because sometimes when I turn to go onto Highway 97 from Rosedale, there's only room for 3 cars. So where am I supposed to go? People blow through the Julia Street stop sign on a regular basis when I'm on my bike. So I'm not sure what you plan to do about that. And the sidewalk coming from Turner to go to Rosedale, there isn't one. So it's very dark there when we walk our dog at night. Think about that, please. But 6 stories is way too high. Thank you. And Merry Christmas and happy birthday from our family, Marty.
Thank you.
Your Worship, Mayor Holmes, honored councillors, my name is Murray Roney. I reside at 12018 Gallagher Street. I think that this really breaks down to a case of NIMBY. It's no matter where you put a dog park, there are going to be people who are opposed to it. I have recreated there with my dogs on a regular basis, which is part of the anticipated use of that park. There is a strong sense of community. I have met people. In fact, I've met neighbors that live 3 or 4 houses away from me, and I met them at the dog park. So I think that it would be a bad mistake on the part of council to shut down the current location of the park. It provides a valued service and people vote with their money. And most people, there are many people who have dogs, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And I don't know how many people have complained about the location of the park, but the dog community and the owners of dogs really truly believe that this is the correct place and the correct time to maintain it. I'm pleased that the council has found it to vote money for a permanent park. I just ask that a permanent park be built and accessible before anything else is done. So I encourage you to consider the Peach Orchard Park as the proper location. It's easily accessible to a wide variety of people. And we as residents also enjoy having a beautiful spot to visit with our neighbors while our dogs play and while we play with our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Excuse me. My name is Arthur Vandershank. I've lived in Summerland for the last 6 years, and I've used the park with 2 dogs. I had an opportunity a couple of years back when tree planting continued in that same locale to note that some of the trees had died because of water-related matters. The horticulturist that was available with further tree planting, and I noticed that the site itself is formerly industrial. About a foot or 2 down, you get gravel. Everything related to the matter of how the park could be functioning is related to maintenance, including the possibility of letting grass grow during the off season for short periods of time. We all know that there's a demand. Yes, and discussions about it being a mess or the unavailability for other use in that area seems inappropriate. Maybe half of a field that was not in use is at stake here. And So I would venture to suggest that the park itself would continue to be utilized by dog owners. And that at that point, there wouldn't be much available isolation of humans that want to stay away from dogs. Some dogs are overly friendly. The business about barking is very difficult to appreciate. I live on a 5-house side street and there are 7 dogs. Sometimes they bark. What's upsetting is when a bark comes about because there's a dog in distress. That's not what happens at this park.
Okay, thank
And
you,
it's
sir. I'll
possible
have
to
ask you-
manage it
I have
much
to-
better.
I have to cut you off now. Thank you very much. Anybody else, please?
Hi, my name is Sue Von Griffiths. I've lived in Summerland for years and I've used the Peace Orchard Park for many activities with my family and friends and visitors and exercising my dogs. And that was before the temporary park was erected. The small beachside dog area that's down there, it was our only option for a while. But it's not really an option that everybody wants to use because it has access to the water and it's also, the dogs get quite dirty. So not a lot of people want to take their dogs there in the wintertime especially. So typically during the winter months, Peace Orchard Park was not used very much. Seemed a shame really because it is such a lovely park. Now with the temporary park, there is a significant amount of people that are now making it full use of it with their dogs and children. It's so nice to see the families and the children and their animals finally enjoying this space, which for the most part has been only occupied by geese. I would also like to note that there are now a lot of elderly people coming with their dogs as it is easily accessible, unlike the other option, the sandy beach. So it gives them choices because not a lot of elderly people can go for hikes with their dogs. As for the noise complaints, honestly, there's more noise that comes from the playground with the children than there ever would be from the dogs. They're just mostly there to play. And if it was that noisy, I wouldn't be down there because I can't stand barking dogs. It's been a great gathering place now where people are meeting up, making new friends, making connections with their animals. It's really a blessing to have such a nice, large contained area and lots of parking. And it's so nice to be down near the beautiful lake. We pay for our licenses for our dogs every year, along with this.
Thank you.
We pay our
I have to
taxes.
cut you off, sorry.
Go to the upkeep of the
Sorry.
park.
Could, sorry, before you go, we need your civic address for the record.
Mine?
Yeah.
5485 Solly Road.
Okay, next, please.
Robert Hacking, 7720 Prairie Valley Road. As we can have seen over the last 12 years, there's a huge demand for a dog park. We've got a lot of information that shows that Summerland lacks a park like this, fully fenced, safe, suitable surface, accessible, that a lot of residents can make use of. And as we have seen, there's been an amazing amount of residents using that park. I've never seen Peach Orchard so busy. The park takes up a 1 acre section and we went on the GIS and measured and there's for usable green space left over, there's still 1.3 acres. So the thought that it's taking up more than half the park is actually just not correct. And that doesn't include the other sections, the gazebos, the water parks, the playground. All those areas are separated from the dog park and now they're separated by a fence, whereas before, since 2008, there would be no fence, it'd be off leash. You can be down there off leash, but no fence. So the fence isolates the use, provides increased safety for both the dogs, the users and the other users of the park. And there's still plenty of space to use everything. I was just thankful for council who are taking the step to do the temporary dog park. That took guts on your part and I appreciate you for doing that. You can't really prove that the park is something that needs until you actually have it there and see what it's been doing. And what it's been doing is bringing the community together and they're making amazing use of a recreational facility and enjoying their chosen recreation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment? Okay, just before anybody goes a second time, we gotta make sure everybody who wants to speak a first time.
I'm quiet, but I'm here. I want to speak.
Okay,
So normally I don't do this because you guys know I have issues. I was sorry talking in public, but my name's Pamela Ayotte, 7720 Prairie Valley Road. And I am the president of the Summerland Dog Association. And I'm really hoping that our communities can work this out. We need a place.
excuse me, I have to ask you to speak to council.
Oh, sorry. But I'm hoping that we can come together. We need a place. It's been 12 years, over $200,000 spent. Consultations, we've gone over and over in surveys and this and that. There's been an astounding response to this site. We go back to Snow Ave, what's going to happen? We go back to Powell, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? You guys are so done hearing this issue. We've been here over and over again. We know we get the signatures. People have comments over comments. We've sent you so much information. How much more do we have to show here that this site has been successful? I'm hoping that, I know there's people from Tuscan Terrace, and I know there's people against it and for it. So what do you do as a council person and as mayor? Do you look and weigh and say, how long do we drag this out? How much more staff time? How much does Lori have to spend more on the dog park issue? I think it's important we communicate to the public that this does build a community. This is their choice of recreation. We don't swing a bat, we don't play frisbee, but we do. Our dogs are everything. It's like our children. We go out there, we talk to our neighbors, our community, we bond together there. And the barking issue, well, there's boaters, there's kids screaming and having fun at the park. The dog's been going down there since 2009 and no complaints till now. So let's try to accommodate each other's needs. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you very much. We have 5 minutes. Anybody else would like to speak? Anybody like to speak for the first time?
Evening. My name is Andrew Slyzik. I live on Loughton Avenue. I hear quite a bit about building the community. Yes, it builds community with the dog people. That community can be built somewhere else. I urge council to found not controversial area like we have at Peach Orchard. It's actually splitting up the community. It's not building the community, it's splitting up the community. There's a huge division. You can just follow Facebook and other media to see for yourself what kind of stuff people are writing there. So I urge you to find suitable area and where dog lovers can build their community and not be splitting the community of the Summerland. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for the first time?
Hello. My name is Michelle Stephen, and I've lived in the community since 1998. We live out in Garnet Valley. I would like to see a good, safe dog park for everybody, large enough for all our dogs. Peach Orchard is the first one that I've found in the community. You can tell I'm nervous, my voice is crackling. But it's safe for our dogs, it's safe for us. The one at Sunoka is great, but again, the dogs travel over to where people are picnicking. I'm not saying Peach Orchard is the location. I'm saying we need a safe, big enough one for our pets. We pay our taxes like everybody else. I don't have children. My dogs are my children. So I would like to see somewhere safe, large enough, even a dog park that has a space for small dogs as well as large dogs, because that can be an issue sometimes. We've been down at this dog park many times. Kids come to the fence, they want to see the dogs or pet them. A lot of families will come in and just visit with the dogs. We've been there in the summer when it's been so loud with people, like having, special events or whatever. I can't see how our dogs are even louder than that. We clean up after the dogs. No one cleans up after the goose poop. You've been walking in that park, I don't know how many years, and there's tons of goose poop. Now it's pretty clean. The dogs actually prevent them from coming up onto the grass. So thank you so much for even considering this for all of us, because they are our kids, just as much as everybody else's. And so many people come up and enjoy them. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Pam Johnson, Garnet Valley. I'd like to speak for my dogs. Anyway, that is the sound that they make when they are happily after the dog park. I think it's such a positive space. I mean, like Michelle was saying, it's a gathering place for people and pets. One recommendation that we were wanting to see if it could be implemented is perhaps a small dog area and a big dog area. Because I know there's a lot of people who are nervous, like me right now, with their pets. And that's the only other thing that I would say. But Peach Orchard is an excellent spot. And like I said, it is such a positive space. So, yeah, I'm a loss for words, but I hope that you'll consider it, because mental health, dogs are mental health for people too. And dogs need exercise, and dogs can't speak. So we're the voice of them. And also too, yeah, they're like our children. So we need a playground for them as well too. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. We've run out of the extended time, unless somebody wants to extend it again. Councilor Trainer.
I'll extend it by 5 minutes to offer anybody else a chance before we wrap up.
A second, Councilor Melvin, all in favor? That carries. So if anybody want to speak for the first time, we're still on the first time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elsie Williams. I'm a new resident in Summerland. I've been here 2 years and I too live at Tuscan Terrace. The first year I lived here, I never had a dog. I still walk down to Peach Orchard every day and enjoyed the walk. 10 months ago, we got a dog. He goes down to Tuscan Terrace Park every day, Peach Orchard Park every day. And he absolutely loves it. He's a golden retriever and needs lots of room to run, which it gives him. I know the grass is a little unsightly, but the lake is beautiful. And I encourage people that are looking at the grass to maybe look beyond that and look at the lake. The dogs aren't that noisy. Sorry, my voice is cracking. The dogs aren't that noisy. There's volleyball players that are noisier than the dogs in the summer. There's no more goose poop in that area, which was a very big problem prior to me having a dog. I'd walk down there and it was not very walkable. Now it's so much better. So not everybody that lives in our area is against the park. It brings much joy to a lot of people, and it brings a lot of joy to a lot of dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for the first time? Okay, for the second time.
I'll go for the first time then.
You too,
Not that I want to speak, but here we go. Simone Kudos, 13514 Prairie Valley. Yeah, not much I can say. I think everything's been said. But everyone's some people are complaining about the dogs and the unsightly fence. What about the unsightly boat launch area? What about the unsightly other aspects? See, again, I can tell I have not prepared, so I'm trying to wing it. But you know, here we are, we've got the dogs. It's for the people that use the park. It's for the taxpayers. It's tourism, the economy. We finally have a place that welcomes everyone, the old and the young, people that don't have dogs anymore, people, the elderly who aren't allowed to have dogs in their apartments. They finally get to come out and enjoy being out with people in a it's not frightening to talk to someone who has a dog, but you couldn't be able to do that and talk to a stranger in a park. But you come to the park, the dog park, and everyone's friendly. It's a common interest. We don't have that in Summerland. Where can you go as a new resident or lonely person and just start talking to people? It's a wonderful thing that we finally have here. And I'd be ashamed to take it away just because the grass is unsightly. Well, the geese were unsightly, leaving their poop everywhere. Let's just try to get along and serve the community as a whole. And that's having the dogs at the park. Okay, that's about it. Second people.
Okay, thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. So I just want to remind the council all the research points that we had made and how Peach Orchard does not coincide with the master plan for our official community plan and parks and recreation plan. We stress that there is lack of community parks in Summerland, actually in comparison with other communities. We came second from the bottom. Kelowna had even less per capita. And I'm sure you're aware, Kelowna has just purchased 1.8 acres of waterfront land for $18 million. Our lakefront does not come cheap, and we will not get another lakefront in Summerland. That area should not be spoiled and given to one user. It should be for all the community. I'd like to urge you, when you are making decisions, that you think about everyone in the community, the children, our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Arthur Vandershank. I live on Charles Avenue, just up from this park area. I'm intending to respond to some of the remarks that I've heard here tonight about the park being a mess, about lakefront that must be protected. This park has nothing to do with that. It's a rectangle of grassland on a former industrial site. And there are drainage issues which have been partly addressed over the years. There's a need for accommodating non-dog owners. That is to say, fencing this area in may facilitate the increase of dog use, but it also has something to offer for non-dog users. I have used it as an off-leash area. My dogs are too people-friendly. Some people truly enjoy it and others don't. So yeah, I appreciate the fenced-in site. If fencing it in permanently, there's an opportunity to do something with heritage. That is an area that has a significant amount of heritage to do with the fruit industry. The dock area was utilized in the past. So I'm only going to argue that seeing this as a split in the community is a bit dramatic. There's a tremendous number of dogs in this town. Perhaps, I heard this from Pamela, a majority of occupants have dogs. So what does that tell you? That these are the people that are getting exercise in a different way if they use these facilities. Summerland has had a great deal of difficulty finding appropriate sites. This is an appropriate site. It's non-residential. It doesn't have environmental issues. And it's arguable that it's not splitting the community. The
Okay,
vast
thank you, sir.
majority can find that
Thank you,
out.
sir. You got the last word. Thank you. I appreciate, we've run out of time. I'm not going to ask to extend it again. I appreciate when there's differing opinions. It's difficult for everyone, but I really want to thank everyone for speaking very respectfully. And we really appreciate it when you have a large crowd like this and everybody is respectful when you don't necessarily agree with each other. So I think on behalf of council, I can say thank you very much to all of you. If I could get a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Betts, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody.